Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. Welcome to 2026. Really excited. We're back after a 2-week break. The Wednesdays were holiday days, so we took a bit of time off, recharged our batteries. This week we're back with a bit of a different type of show. We are responding to the governor's State of the Commonwealth and budget address. It's a big speech delivered on just the second day of this year's General Assembly, which is a 60-day session to create a 2-year budget. The speech was just delivered at the Thomas Clark Center for Kentucky History in Frankfort, shown live on KET and on the governor's Facebook page. We are going to be checking in with our co-hosts soon to hear what they thought of what the governor pointed out would be his last budgetary address, ... in this job. We'll hear some thoughts. But before we get into that, I want to make sure you there listening or watching that you are ready to turn Kentucky's 6th district purple. That is right. We know it. You know it. We are sorely in need of significant political change in Kentucky. For the next 10 months, we're going to be focused like a laser on flipping the Kentucky 6th district, as well as key state house seats that are within that 16-county congressional district. Right now, we've got 4 great candidates running. The Progress Kentucky is looking beyond the primary. We're working to shift the electorate who will ultimately show up in November. Really big job. It's going to take volunteers. It's going to take time. It's going to take resources. We need your help. I'll be honest, we had an amazing Flip the 6 campaign volunteer event at the Lexington West 6 Barrel Room on Monday this week. 50 folks decided to come out, for their New Year's resolution of getting plugged into their community, helping to take Trump's power, of, working on their penmanship. Really, it was amazing, though. Folks were writing postcards to voters that really do need personal engagement. They need dialogue. They need encouragement to show up for that election. We're going to be back there. We're doing the first Monday of every month is the goal. So we'll be back there. I think it's Monday, February 2nd. If you want to help out, make plans to join us next month, or reach out right now. We can get you set up to start writing postcards to your neighbors ASAP. Sign up at the link, progressky.org/Monday. If your handwriting is too illegible to be helpful, please make a monthly contribution right now via our secure online website. Act Blue to help turn Kentucky purple. $6 maybe for the 6th district. $6 a month would be awesome. $16, maybe $16 for the 16 counties in the 6th district. $600, whatever, that would be awesome. $61 will buy us a roll of stamps. We're sending these postcards out, and it ain't cheap to get them out there. So $61 will buy us a roll of postcard stamps, which would be awesome. One point about that. So I mentioned we are going to endorse a candidate ultimately for this seat. We are not going to endorse until after the primary, mostly because we're cowards. We like all 4 people that are running for the seat. And we had Erin Petrie at the most recent volunteer event. She spoke a little bit about her campaign. Next month, we're going to have David Kloiber, who is also running. He'll share his campaign, his candidacy. The month after that, we're going to have Sherilyn Stevenson, proud Mountain Democrat, speaking to the group. And then the month after that is the division we'll have Zach Dembo. So that'll be the 4 candidates running for the Democratic nomination. That, of course, is May.
Yes,
May 19th is the primary. So we'll get them all on there before you'll be able to hear them from them directly. They've all been on our show as well, so you can look back at our YouTube page and see if you want to hear from those candidates and what they had to say when they are on the show. One thing I'm going to underscore, because I think it's in the new year now and people are starting to get a little bit more, frantic about the campaign. People are getting more serious. They all pledged to us live on the interwebs. They all pledged to not run any negative ads against each other, which I thought was great, and B, they all pledged to come together and unite behind the ultimate nominee, to support that nominee, to campaign for that nominee, to do everything they can to flip that seat, because they all agreed that's the most important thing, is flipping the seat. It's not just about their own personal political ambitions. So I think that's really important. Really do. I think everyone needs to remember that as the campaigns heat up. And we'll maybe do something to share that out. Parker, we can put that on your to-do list, maybe pulling clips from those pledges, those interviews, to make sure we all are remembering what we committed to. All right, so now we're going to check in with our co-host. We like the way we like to start this is with a little, reference to Tyler Childers, his great song "Bitin List," which I don't know if we can play legally or technically, but if you haven't heard the song, you really need to hear it. All right, so on your Bitin list, I'm going to turn to our co-host to figure out who that is. I'll go first. I'm Aaron. I'm from Childsburg in Lexington. My Bitin list, one guy is on it. It's Senate President Robert Stivers. So Robert Stivers, I watched this guy on Kentucky Newsmakers, WKYT's Newsmakers with Bill Bryant, shooting down every common sense initiative that's been discussed in the kind of the lead up to the legislature, right? So we'll talk about a little bit more about this in a second, but pre-K for all, he just shot that right down. A higher minimum wage, he shot that right down. This dinosaur has been in the legislature for 30 years, but working diligently for that entire time to block progress for our Commonwealth for 3 decades. So really just gross, just disgusting, but he's quite possibly the most powerful person in Frankfurt for a lot of levels. You know, the governor's got a lot of power, and he's got a lot of a big bully pulpit. Most people don't even know who Robert Stivers is, but that guy has a lot of power to say no to what the governor wants to do. So we need to be watching him. We need to be putting some pressure on him. And I'm just going to say, I'm starting it off by putting him on my Bitin list. All right. Kim, you want to go next?
I sure will. How's everybody doing? Happy New Year. Everybody looks wonderfully great. Yes. So I'm Kimberly Cecil Jones. I'm coming to you live from Louisville, Kentucky, which a lot of people don't know that we have 80 cities inside of our one city. And I happen to live in a sub-city called Shively. So on my Bitin list today, I'm going to say Nicki Minaj. Nicki Minaj being on Turning Point USA, the big conference that they had, convention with Erica Kirk, and saying all the things that she was saying about this administration and how Trump gives hope and everything else. If you're interested to hear how stupid she sounds and asinine, you could just look it up on YouTube for yourself. But Nicki Minaj is basically the best female rapper in the world. She's been crowned as that. She's been in the game for quite some time, and she built her entire career on the hip hop movement with primarily African Americans, Black folks here in America, and also what they call our queers, our LGBTQIA plus community. So for her to take her whole career of 20 something odd years and just down the drain, I can't understand. They say, well, she wants a pardon for her son. Also, they've gotten over 120,000 signatures for a petition for Nicki to go back to the country where she's from, Tobago. So I can't remember which one it is, one of those Caribbean islands. But I didn't even know she wasn't a U.S. citizen. So why are you even talking like that? And I think her career is ruined at this point.
You think he's? I mean, there are a lot of rappers who get some money. Like, you know what? Actually, I kind of like the Republican, not paying any taxes thing. 50 Cent, like very famously quite conservative. I think Snoop Dogg is leaning that way, right? Because he's loaded. But
they're not getting up there like Nicki did. And just singing like all praises to Trump and his entire administration and ideology. So, I mean, that is, when you go to that level of what she did, that is career suicide. She's lost over 10 million followers. Probably it would have been more on Instagram, but she shut it down. And I was one of those devout barbs, as they would call us. And I have unfollowed Nicki Minaj on everything. I don't want to even hear a song. I don't want it, nothing.
Gotcha. No, Nicki. TPUSA was too far for you. Gotcha. That makes sense. All right, Dr. Clardy, welcome.
My take on that is simply this: what shall it profit a rapper to gain the whole world and lose their soul? And that is exactly what Nicki Minaj did. So on my Bitin list is ICE. Renee Nicole Good was alive 24 hours ago. Tonight, she's dead. Her family is in mourning. The country is in mourning. She was murdered this morning by ICE agents in cold blood, and we're demanding accountability. This has gone too far. The thing that we feared the most has happened, and I'm afraid this is just the beginning. So batten down the hatches. 2026 is going to be a long dystopian year. Our worst fears have been realized.
Yeah, it's been tumultuous. Yeah, like only like we're a week in, and we've seen you can't say they took out the Maduro regime, right? Because the regime's still there. They beheaded it. They took out Maduro, but like without any notice, without any advance warning, or certainly pre-clearance from Congress, who has the theoretically has the constitutional authority to take those actions. That happened, and now this, it's a rough way to start the year.
Clearly an act of war, and now we have designs on Cuba and Greenland. Since when did we start prosecuting these wars of aggression for territory? I thought we were better than that. I thought the arrangement that we had in place over the last 80 years, insofar as collective security, peace, negotiation rather than war, I thought that was going to be the norm. Apparently it's not. We've slipped into a brand new international relations paradigm with this president. It's very reckless, it's very dangerous, and it can lead us very quickly to war.
Dr. Clardy, can I say this really quickly, though?
Sure.
We have a long history of going in and taking what we want. We've had a long history. We complained about Russia in our elections, but let's be honest. How many elections have we interfered in? America, let's just be honest. We're thugs in suits. We don't have to wear blue. We don't have to wear red. We're thugs in suits. And we happen to be the godfather of the world mafia, or what you could say, the gang leader of the gang, which is NATO. So I talk to my daughter a lot. A lot of this is unprecedented because it is so much of common knowledge. But of all the decades and centuries of what we've done as a country, the blood is truly on our hands. And Trump has he's used all of these mechanisms to actually just let you know what's going on. It's not like they're keeping it secret.
And to your point, here's the thing. The list is long. Arbenz in Guatemala, Allende in Chile, Mossadegh in Iran, the way that we broke the strikes in Italy, the way that we went into Vietnam, propping up Zim, propping up that government, the way that we issued a preemptive strike against Iraq some 20 years ago without any pretext. No, it was an act of war. We have a bloody history, but at least we provided some sort of pretext for it, some sort of rationale.
We have a rationale. We're getting the oil. There's a rationale. We are going to get the oil.
And then if that lady, if that vice president, who's now the interim over there in Venezuela, if she does not do what this administration tells her to do, we will go in and take over, and we will put up an American flag, just like we did in Afghanistan.
Will we? Venezuela is a little bit harder to take over. It's a pretty big country.
Well, he's going after Colombia, and I'm going to tell you this. We all know that Colombia is the drug capital of the world, and the cartels have their own military intelligence, drones, and everything else. And that Colombian president, I saw him speak, and he had a baseball cap on, and I'm going to sum it up for you, and we can move on. He was basically saying, come on over here. I wish you would.
Yes. And we will get deep involved in a guerrilla war in South America. We don't fight guerrilla wars very well.
Yeah.
So, this is a crazy moment for this administration.
Crazy way to start the year for sure. I think we're gonna return our attention to our main focus as an organization, which is of course Kentucky politics. And I will say this: I think we're in good company as we think about Governor Beshear's address. So he had Silas House opening up the event. The MC, made some opening remarks. We, of course, Silas is one of our favorite guests. He's been on this show a number of times. He was at our Flip the Six campaign launch. So I like to see that. Maybe we're going to need to ask Silas, how do we get the governor on this show? And then had an opening prayer, which evoked Wendell Berry, Bell Hooks, other, Kentucky literary leaders, which I really liked. And I think the the other thing I really liked about this, before he even got to talking, was his walk-on music was Tyler Childers, right? So Universal Sound from Tyler Childers, which I think is a great song to open it up with. And then the speech began. So initial thoughts, initial responses. Dr. Clardy, I know you watched. What'd you think?
If there's any doubt that Andy Beshear is a candidate for the presidency in 2028, I think those doubts have been removed. I think that he's going to run. I think he's going to run to the middle. His speech sounded very presidential. He reminded me very much of Bill Clinton when he announced for the presidency in 1991. And I think this is going to be a very interesting campaign. Andy Beshear is going to be a very tough contender for the presidency. He certainly has my support in 2028, but we'll see how this message plays in the rest of the country. I think he basically tonight gave his talking points for the 2028 campaign.
Yeah. And then what we heard was, very much, the American dream being the theme of it, and some key elements of that American dream. Dr. Cecil Jones, any initial kind of reaction responses?
Yes. I looked at his speech as well. I think he did an excellent job, but I'm in love with Andy. I think I'm going to get Nate Dogg. I'm going to get him to make a song about Kim's in love with Andy. You better watch out, Brittany. No, I'm just playing. But anyway, I'll be working on that campaign as well, Dr. Clardy. Most definitely. We know he's going to run. We see the writings on the wall. I think the entire country knows that he's going to run. But still his heart is right here for Kentucky. And he showed that. And he showed that he wanted all of us, how he brought about, and he talked about expanding the Medicaid. A lot of states, and people don't know this, they don't have the opportunities if you're on Medicaid like we do in Kentucky to have hearing and vision and dental. Most states don't even offer that with their Medicaid. He talked about pre-K. And it was surprising when he said some kids get to kindergarten and they're not even potty trained. That was amazing to me. That shows me he knows the pulse beat of just about everyone, from the lowest salary, no salary, to the highest salary, and everyone in between. I also like the fact that he showcased also the new hospital that we have in the West End here in Louisville in Jefferson County. And the West End is primarily your urban area. And he gave a shout out to the CEO of Norton Hospital and the young lady sitting right next to him, Corinza Townsend. I've known her practically her whole life. We know her as Coco, and that was one of my best friend's daughter, my late best friend, and she's like a goddaughter to me. So my chest just swelled with pride, and I just love Andy and how he brings about a speech that all of us can relate to.
Yeah, I did, a couple things. Like initially, kind of some of the opening remarks, I thought he was referring to some of the national challenges, right? The idea that democracy isn't guaranteed, it requires work and it requires commitment. I felt that was more of an allusion to, what's happening at the federal level, national level, than it is really what's happening in Kentucky necessarily. So I think that's probably, kind of alluding to those national ambitions. And then he said this, and I don't know, maybe I'm a cynic, but do you agree with the governor that folks are finding hope in Kentucky? That folks are looking at Kentucky and finding hope? I don't know. That seemed a little interesting. I think we're doing okay as a state, but we are not where I want us to be as a Commonwealth. And yeah, it's great that the governor has, expanded Medicaid to cover things like vision, dental, and hearing, but that doesn't mean our healthcare is great. And it doesn't mean our health, our outcomes for health are great. right? There's a lot of work to be done, and the fact that pre-K for all is so needed. Your point, Dr. Cecil Jones, that idea that more than half of the kids are showing up to kindergarten not at all ready, right? That's why we need pre-K, which it goes to show I don't know about the hope. I don't know where the hope's coming from in Kentucky. I see a lot of need for work, but maybe that's just me.
Well, he didn't say that everything was taken care of, actually.
No, he didn't, but he said people are looking at Kentucky and seeing hope. And I was just, where exactly is the hope?
There is, as long as there's another level to reach and you don't give up, there's always hope. The opposite of giving up is hope. And if you have even just 1% of hope, you can piggyback on that, right? There is hope. Look at us doing this show. We're still hoping for a purple Kentucky.
Right.
Look at the rallies. We're still hoping. I mean, why waste your time if you think it won't do anything? We all have hope.
Right. We got
I agree with the governor.
Yes.
But
I agree with the governor. I don't agree with you.
But this is where he's going to have to be careful. Michael Dukakis did the same thing in 1988 by touting what was called the Massachusetts Miracle. And what he did was he opened up the door for Vice President Bush to go in and nitpick at the smallest things that had gone wrong with Massachusetts, like Willie Horton, like pollution in Boston Harbor, and so forth. So he has to tread very lightly on that, because let's say he's the Democratic nominee in 2028. Let's say J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio. They will find the smallest, most minute thing that went wrong in his administration and blow it up 1,000-fold. And it will blow up in his face. So I would be very careful insofar as touting that type of optimism, because not everything is okay in this state. Let's be real.
He didn't say it was okay, though, Dr. Clardy. He just talked about hope. And wasn't that the campaign tagline for Obama
and Bill Clinton? Yes.
Hope.
Well, okay. I'll just say this. I think Dr. Clardy makes a really good point that, yes, indeed, if, as he runs, which we all know, and we've said it earlier on the show, that he's running, he made it very clear to the state and to the nation in his remarks tonight. But we saw it earlier. It was clear that he was kind of charting that course. And I think he touched on some of those national themes that I thought were really powerful. The point, the American dream feels like a hallucination to too many people because of affordability crisis. So that I think was an important point. He likes to tout the economic activity in Kentucky and the number of big factory jobs, the amount of big economic investments that are happening here in our Commonwealth. And I think it is impressive. The fact that, $10.5 billion, 9,600 new jobs. These are announcements, though, right? So last year, that's what was announced. That doesn't always turn into, we don't want these to be hallucinations. We want these to be real jobs. And I think, the point of Blue Oval, which we had, last time we went out before the new year, we had Haley Hadfield from Blue Oval on the show talking about how, she was going to lose her job because Blue Oval was just not going to do what Ford thought it was going to do. And they were going to shut it down and pivot to a new business model in that factory. Right. So I didn't hear, a subtraction in the governor's remarks about economic investments. Right. But what that really does represent is a pretty big downgrade in that major and massive investment that Ford had initially made in that joint project with SK On. So these aren't guarantees. They're good signs for sure, and we're glad to get them. In that 10-day period where he had GE, Ford, Apple, and General Matter all make major announcements and investments in our state, that's to be celebrated for sure. But I also feel like it's good to have some caution, good to note that other policies are at play to make sure that these projects get over the finish line, and it's not all just kind of roses and good news.
But the major
test to hear about the bourbon. I wanted to hear about. Yeah. I wanted to hear about one of our main sources of income, of our economic stability in this state of Kentucky is bourbon. Bourbon is down 9%. Also, young people, the studies are out. Young people are not drinking as much. And I'm like, what are they doing? Must be popping pills, I guess, but they're not drinking as much. And because Canada took all of our bourbons off the shelves, okay, and they would just raffle off for charity the American Kentucky bourbons. But our bourbon industry is going down with the quickness. And I really wanted the governor, since it's such a large industry for us, I did want him to just mention about, the bourbon and is there any ideas? Jim Beam is going to shut down for a whole year.
Yes.
As they try to recabarate. My uncle retired from Brown-Forman as a vice president back in 2019. And he told me he sold all his stocks of Brown-Forman, which I couldn't believe. But now I understand. He saw the writing on the wall before we did. So we've spent a lot of money on bourbon. Canada refuses, and that also shows you the power of another country coming back at us.
That's true.
Yeah.
No. See, this is where Beshear is really going to have to also prove his mettle. You mentioned that about the bourbon and the linkage to the tariffs. Of course, the tariffs pretty much have decimated that industry for the most part. This is where the governor is going to have to, at some point between now and next year, hopefully sooner than later, he's also going to have to tell us about his vision of the world to come. And he's going to have to link the tariffs with that, the messes that this administration has made. He has to give a major foreign policy speech by this time next year to be taken seriously. Because you're right. What Canada did, that was awful. But it's going to keep happening. The bourbon industry in Kentucky is going to be hurt because of these tariffs. Who's going to buy our product now because these tariff walls are going up? This administration has started a trade war in that respect. And so international forces are definitely going to impact Kentucky's economy. And this governor and hopefully this presidential candidate will certainly mention that in 2028.
Yeah. I think Canada also just, they picked their sides. They're like, hey, we're with Greenland and Denmark. So, I don't know that if we do anything there, it's going to be useful for our economy. But let's run through some of the stuff that he did talk about in terms of that, the hope for Kentucky and what he's trying to do to build us up. $70 million for build-ready sites, $100 million for final project sites, $25 million for rural economic development, which, a lot of rural counties are feeling like they've been left out of some of these announcements and some of these booms. Affordable housing. So we definitely plugged the tornado and flood reconstruction projects that they're doing. Floyd, Knott, Perry County got shout outs. $150 million in affordable housing trust fund, which would turn into $1 billion in private housing investments. So that's big on housing. That was part of his kind of American Dream for All narrative. And then, of course, healthcare being really important as well. Talking about expanding Medicaid, which you'd already discussed, Kimberly. Talked about, medical cannabis while banning some of the sketchy, pot-based, drugs you can buy in the corner store or whatever. Crack them. What's that?
They're not pot-based.
Okay, whatever.
Now you're stepping on my toes. Okay, you're stepping on my toes.
I should let you talk about it. But he talked about banning some of that stuff. He did, get into some of the federal policy rights. So he called out the big ugly bill, and it's, how it's expected to close 35 rural hospitals. But he did also talk about, how important it was that, they're putting $100 million into increasing decreasing Connect costs. So that Kentucky healthcare, the nursing student loan forgiveness program, that rural hospital fund, $125 million for rural hospitals, hoping and helping to address some of the federal cuts that are happening. Talked about roads and bridges, of course. Very proud of the infrastructure work that's happened. He thinks that's a good, kind of not left versus right, but forward for Kentucky kind of issue, right? Talked about public safety with KSP funding and a re-entry campus to help reduce recidivism. That seemed actually really interesting. You mentioned that would make Kentucky a kind of national leader in some of those efforts to, help people who are incarcerated get the skills they need to not get back there. And then very much proudly 100% pro public education governor. So he talked a lot about public education, $159 million for mandatory education raises. So increasing take-home pay by 7% is in his budget. $560 million in kind of those pension and retirement funding. And then he got into pre-K for all. I think we have a clip for pre-K for all. So maybe Parker, if we can play that up.
Empowering our kids to do better. As it says in Psalms, children are a gift from the Lord. They are a reward from him. Our priority always must be the future, and our future is molded in our public schools. I am unapologetically a 100% pro-public education governor. Every budget I proposed has invested in our school system, starting with our educators. Once again, I'll be doing what's right. I'm proposing $159 million for mandatory raises for our educators and a proposal to increase take-home pay by nearly 7%. My budget also increases education funding per pupil, and it adds $560 million to our teachers' retirements. But that leads me to the most important choice in this session for our future, our businesses, our families, and our children. The single most effective way we succeed in this next budget is by funding pre-K for all.
So this, obviously really important for him. I think, again, referring back to, my Bitin List, Senate President Robert Stivers really just dismissed this like immediately. I think there is going to be a lot of, tension in the Capitol over pre-K for all. I don't think the Republicans are going to want to give it to him whatsoever. I think this is going to be a battle line that's drawn. I think what we all know is that the super majority, the GOP super majority in Frankfurt, do not like Andy Beshear. They will go out of their way to ensure he does not get what he wants, even if it's clearly in the best interest of our Commonwealth. Clearly, pre-K for all is what our state needs to achieve at a higher level, and it's something that is in other states, this is like a bipartisan initiative that everyone agrees helps out their kids. But in this state, because Andy Beshear is running for governor and because Robert Stivers is an asshole and the rest of those supermajority leaders are assholes and get their feelings hurt that Andy's getting a lot of attention and no one knows who they are. They can't get waited on in a good restaurant because, they just look like jerks. And so, no one knows who these guys are, but they have a lot of power in Frankfurt. So they're not going to meet him where he's at. They're not going to meet the needs of their constituents. They're going to just say that it's too expensive or that, what we've got is good enough, which obviously it's not, So I don't know, guys, what do you think about this one? Am I just being overly cynical? Do you see a road for him to win this?
A possible one, because he also in that same paragraph issued a veiled threat in this election year, 2026, that 4-year-olds don't vote. And he definitely put this in a nonpartisan plane. And so, the pressure is going to be on Stivers and the Republican leadership and the General Assembly to maybe rethink this one, because this is an issue that's going to help a lot of people across both sides of the aisle, all throughout the Commonwealth. Pre-K for all is not a bad thing. And when you want to talk about empowering students, preparing students for the next century, for this coming century, and the jobs for this next century, and preparing them to do well in school, this is something that's really going to impact parents, Democrats and Republicans and independents. And so I thought that was a very astute move on his point to point out that this is an issue that doesn't just affect voters that don't vote like 4-year-olds, but those over 18 and those who are parents who do.
Yeah. Kimberly, what do you think?
I agree with Dr. Clardy on that as well, and yourself, Aaron. It is very, very important. Other countries, education seems to be more important than what it is here. I've said this for many years. The powers that be, they want us sick, poor, and dumb. And our governor wants us to be smarter. A lot of other states have gotten on board with pre-K. And I hate that we're always coming to the party late, so to speak, if at all. But I think the way that he posed it to us tonight, I do believe that there could be a slight possibility that he maybe can get this through.
I'd love to see it. I just have a hard time envisioning it because these, if the Republicans stay united or even mostly united, it's very hard for the Democrats to get anything moving forward. I don't know that he's got enough, kind of Republican support for this initiative. I think they've been pretty clear they're not a huge fans. There've been some folks. There's certainly been some. I think Republicans who over time have been supportive. I'm not sure that they're all still in the legislature. But I will keep my fingers crossed because this is the right thing for our Commonwealth. I hope that those folks remember, that they're there to serve their constituents, not their political party. So, and I think he did a really good job of, discussing the value of it, right? So we talked earlier about the kids not being ready for kindergarten. He also talked about the kind of economic value of doing it, right? So $1 invested in pre-K returns $10 to the state's economy. That's a win, right? That's a big win for the state. He also talked about that $9,000 additional income per family. Basically, the families who take advantage of this pre-K for all, they get in essence $9,000 in additional income, and that lasts over at least a 6-year period. That's like real money for a lot of people. Why in the world would people say no to that, other than kind of blind partisanship, right?
And looking at 2028, this also helps him with progressives of the Sanders wing of the Democratic Party. The fact that he's promoting pre-K for all is going to play very, very well with that constituency who'll be voting in 28.
No, for sure. And then a couple other, projects or programs he brought up before he closed, which ones I was listening for specifically was, that people shouldn't freeze in the winter or get heat stroke in the summer. He said he wanted to spend $75 million to ensure that at-risk Kentuckians can pay their utility bills. I know Kentuckians for Energy Democracy had been running a campaign to not cut people's utility connections during these kind of extreme weather moments. And I don't know that this is it's not what they asked for, right? This basically, I think, makes sure that utilities keep getting paid, as opposed to just like, hey, yeah, no, we don't really care that it costs you a little bit more money. You're not going to let people freeze. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how people respond to this. I think, certainly it's something and it's helpful. I don't know if the numbers are commensurate with the need or not, but certainly it's a step forward for sure. The other thing he mentioned was fighting hunger. Of course, he loves the loaves and fishes story because it's in all the Gospels. And he mentioned the SNAP cuts that the big ugly bill created. So he's got the $50 million for the Feeding Kentucky food banks. That, I believe, is not new money. I think that already went out the door or was announced, but maybe it's just a reminder that that's what's in his budget. But it was, I think, more of a kind of emergency response when the SNAP cuts hit, especially during the shutdown, right, when that was such a huge problem. So, and then he closed, I think, invoking Lincoln. I think we might have some of that to play as well. And then we'll get our co-host views of the overall speech on the other side of that. Parker, can we play that clip?
Instead of divides, that works for the good of all of us instead of creating an us versus a them. If you walk into the construction project that is our state capitol, you'll find a statue of Abraham Lincoln. His Gettysburg Address is on a plaque on the wall. Another reminder.
We had some
instead of divides, that works for the good of all of us instead of creating an us versus a them. If you walk into the construction project that is our state capitol, you'll find a statue of Abraham Lincoln. His Gettysburg Address is on a plaque on the wall. Another reminder that our democracy is indeed fragile. President Lincoln said to his countrymen, "We are not enemies, but friends. Though passion may have strained it, it must not break the bonds of our affection." Social media lifts up the angry and the judgmental. We must amplify kindness, acceptance, and empathy. This polarized moment in our history, it won't last forever. And like Lincoln all those years ago, Kentucky can lead the way out of the darkness and into the light. It's our job, it's our duty, and we cannot leave a broken country. So as we repair our state capitol, let us also repair ourselves, our communities, and our countries. Remember, your neighbor's not the enemy from within. She's just your neighbor, trying to do her best in this difficult world. This moment in our history today is going to determine how future Kentucky.
I blame C-SPAN for some of those technical difficulties on that clip. I don't think it's Parker's fault. But yeah, I thought it was like, clearly he's putting out some national messaging. He is putting out some things that he thinks is going to resonate with an audience well beyond Frankfurt and our Commonwealth. But it's not like these are bad things for folks to hear in our Commonwealth. I think they are important. I thought it was a good speech. I think he hit it wasn't too long, wasn't too in the weeds. It wasn't too fluffy either. So I think it walked a nice line. And maybe I'm even buying some of the, looking at Kentucky with hope. I have a hard time with the hope because I know that we have to get all these ideas through the GOP super duper majority in Frankfurt, who are not going to do Andy any favors. And in fact, because his national ambitions, I think they see their job as to weaken him before he even gets onto that national stage unencumbered by Frankfurt, right? So I'm nervous about how they weren't nice to him when he was nowhere in the conversation about running for president, right? And now I think their knives will be sharpened, and I truly believe they will see their job not to serve their constituents, but to knock him down a rung.
But what he did was very coy in that moment, because the quote that he gave was from the first inaugural address that Lincoln gave while the Capitol Dome was being repaired and expanded right before the Civil War, as the Civil War was about to implode. And so he made this very important parallel that as we're going through these national convulsions, at the same time that Kentucky state capitol is being refurbished, and this idea of bringing the country together by showing commonality. And I thought that was very astute on his part.
Nice. Some historical rhyming going on. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Nice. Any final thoughts, Kimberly?
I think he was dressed impeccably.
He has leveled up his suit game. I will say that, man. From his first time on the scene as attorney general, and then when he first ran for governor, he had some ill-fitting suits, and now he looks sharp for sure. What else?
Also, I feel that he did look presidential. However, I didn't catch the first part. Where was this?
Oh, this was in the Thomas Clark Center for Kentucky History, which is there in Frankfurt, I believe.
Yes. I would have liked to have seen him at the Capitol. It looks more authoritative. It looks more, firm and decisive. You get what I'm saying? Maybe I'm not using the right adjectives here.
No, it felt like he was maybe in the mall of a food court, right? It didn't have that kind of serious presidential vibe that you get from the rostrum in the Capitol. But of course, the Capitol is under construction right now. So
and even the old state capitol, they're doing some work on that, because there were some rooms, I was there a couple of months ago, there were some rooms I couldn't go into because they were doing some work there too. But he had the friendly crowd, he had the messaging, he had the image of someone giving an important presidential type speech. That was the vibe I picked up. That's a very nice sized venue.
Yeah, the camera angles weren't awesome. If you were watching it, when people stood up to clap, you couldn't see anything or whatever. But it is what it is. I think it was from a optics perspective, I'm more inclined to agree with Kim. I think from a content perspective, I think he did a really good job. His delivery was fine. It didn't seem too he sometimes comes across a little too stilted, right? I don't think he's as off the cuff feeling as maybe he could be. But I think he's getting better. I think doing a podcast is helping him out. It's giving him some more practice in the arena of being a little bit more off the cuff. But he does a great job. It was a great speech. I was really proud to call him my governor for sure.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a different session because there aren't public galleries in the in the new space they'll be using this General Assembly. So that's going to be I think a problem for transparency. This GOP super duper majority has struggled with transparency and struggled with following the rules about how you let the public know what's happening in the legislative process. So the fact there won't be galleries makes me even more nervous about what they're up to. But we will see. We will be back with coverage of that General Assembly next week as well. But I think, Kimberly, if you wanted to close us out, that would be awesome.
I sure will. Tonight has been really, really amazing, you guys. I always love to see you all and to partake in good conversation. And although we may not agree on everything, we're for the same things. Mm-hmm. So let me do our disclaimer first. And thank you to our governor for being that we are so blessed to have Andy Beshear as our governor. And he does make us proud, Aaron. He really, really does. So Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State and organizes a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project and Common Ground Kentucky Action. And we're also proud members of the Forward Kentucky Network. Progress Kentucky's goal is always to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. We will be back next week covering the session, and we will be joined by State Representative Ann Gay Donworth from Lexington State House District 76. We're going to be hearing her perspective on the General Assembly, and on January the 21st, the week following, we'll be joined by More Perfect Union's Emmy Award-winning correspondent, John Russell, who has done amazing work on the interwebs covering progressive politics from a rural and working class perspective. Production of episode 241 was by our very own amazing, great Parker Williams. Thank you, Parker. And Nate Orshan wrote and performed our theme song. You can always find more information and music at natosongs.com. That's natosongs.com. And if you miss our weekly live stream on Facebook or YouTube, our audio podcast and our show notes are always available on Apple, Spotify, and just about, wherever you get your podcast from. And if you do listen to our podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. You know how the algorithms go, wherever you may be listening. Happy New Year, everyone. Our resolution for this year needs to be that we get our people in office. So we got to make sure that we're voting and tell everyone else to vote. Until next week, you have a great rest of your week.